I'm COVID-19 Watch. This is Moneyline with Nancy segment. I can still hear our guests in my ear, you know. I can still hear them, the Wenga's guests in my ear. So pardon me if I'm not a bit coherent for the next 1 minute or so. All right, I am Nancy Nnaji, COVID-19 Watch, Moneyline with Nancy segment. On today's edition of the program, I will be looking at the FIRS directive on tenancy and lease agreements, stamp duties of various rates to be paid. Just a few days ago, there was uproar on social media and everywhere in the country. For those of us that watch the economic space, I would say the rumor was that 6% will be paid to 6% stamp duty will be paid to landlords by tenants for your lease. But the FIRS has come forward to clarify that. But I'll be looking at the intricacies of what this policy is all about and perhaps the drive by the federal government to generate revenue. Also, over the weekend, we saw uproar on social media and almost everywhere about NIPOS charges, NIPOS new licensing fees for businesses and individuals in the country. The Minister of Communications and Digital Economy, Issa Pantami, has also come out to speak against it, that the policy has not been approved by the federal government and, the NIPOS is not supposed to charge that. We'll be looking at all of that on today's edition of the program. My guest will be joining me shortly. I hope he's on standby right now. He is Mr. Oyedele, Taiwo Oyedele, who is the West Africa tax leader. Okay, I can see him. Mr. Oyedele, good morning and good to see you. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Yes, good morning.
How is Lagos today?
Lagos is beautiful and it's sunny.
It's sunny. Okay, it's not a bit sunny. It's just in between here in Abuja this morning. Let's get started because I know that you have some other engagements in the next few minutes. So try as much as possible to put in some perspectives for us. The FIRS says that, in fact, it ordered landlords as well as agents to charge stamp duty. Let me also clarify, 6% for rent above 21 years, 3% for 7 to 21 years, 0.7% on less than 7 years on all tenancy and lease agreement. As they do the transactions, they should also remit to the tax authority. Also on C of O, that certificate of occupancy. Please explain this. Because when this policy came out, there was so much uproar. What is actually happening?
Yeah, I think it's important to start by just giving a little bit of a background for the sake of our viewers. So the Stamp Duties Act is one of the oldest laws in Nigeria. It's actually an ordinance of 1939. But of course, because Nigeria became an independent country, it was all reenacted. And the latest reenactment of the law was a lot of the provisions in the law are out of date. You find something like 2 kobo, you find penalty of 20 naira. In those days when the ordinance was enacted, they were in pounds. And then when Nigeria became a country that had its own currency, naira was stronger than even pound sterling at that time. But it hasn't been, updated. So in terms of stamp duties, it can be denoted by an impress or adhesive stamp. And the charges can either be fixed, which means it's a nominal amount regardless of the value of the contract, and it can also be ad valorem, which means that the value that you pay in stamp duties changes based on the value of the contract. With respect to rent, which is the question you asked, what the law says is that the amount you pay will depend on the tenure of the tenancy agreement, such that if your tenancy agreement is less than 7 years, you only pay only 0.78%. In fact, when the law was enacted, there was a distinction between if your rent was, more than 50 naira a year. Imagine rent of 50 naira. So if your rent was less than 50 naira a year, your stamp duty is even lower than that, is 0.18%. What that means is on 100,000, you pay only 180 naira. But at 0.78%, because everybody now pays rent that is more than 50 naira, you only pay about 780 naira on 100,000 naira of annual rent. And then if your rent is for a period longer than 7 years, but not longer than 21 years, that's when you pay the 3%, which is about 3,000 naira on 100,000 naira of rent. Above 21 years, I'm not sure you find that in many cases, so it won't really be applicable to most people. But unfortunately, the FRS was not as clear in their communication. They just said 6%, and that created a lot of panic because apart from the fact that the economy is tough, people are not in the mood now to start paying additional taxes.
What is this about stamp duties, and stamp duties? It seems the FIRS really got it wrong because they could not communicate to Nigerians on what the charges are. But with this explanation, and I think they brought out some clarification some days later. What is this about stamp duties that seems so ambiguous? The Finance Act 2019 also introduced some amendments, expatiates on this, and also the FIRS takeover of stamp duties, so expatiate on all this. Yes.
Yeah, so in those days that all of us were not alive, when the stamp duty laws were enacted, you didn't have a lot of other taxes like value-added tax was never in existence at the time. And you'd also imagine that in 1939 there were loads of things that we're doing as a people that are no longer applicable today. If you look at the law, you still find Nigeria Railway Corporation, you find Western Nigeria, Eastern Nigeria, Northern Nigeria. Those things no longer exist, but they're still there in the law. And one of the complications was also that the law says that stamp duties that involves a company or group of persons should be payable to the federal government. And stamp duties on transactions involving individuals like you and I should be paid to the state government. And it did not mention which agency. So historically, we find that NIPOS was the one who was collecting stamp duty, in quotes, because NIPOS had to issue postage stamps for people to send letters. Now, postage stamp is different from stamp duties. Postage stamp is just saying, what is the evidence that you have paid for me to carry your parcel from point A to point B? But because nobody else was doing it, the law wasn't clear about who is supposed to do it, NIPOS continued to do it until the Finance Act of 2019 that was enacted into law in January 2020 now says specifically that on behalf of the federal government, the FRS is the only competent authority to administer stamp duty. And at the state level, it will be the State Internal Revenue Service. So you can imagine the excitement and the eagerness on the part of the FRS, and they're going all out. One of the things they've done is to work on an interministerial committee to try and bring all the different arms of government together to work together on this initiative. So that is the background as to why today we see the FRS trying to, get everybody to pay stamp duties.
Okay, Mr. Oyedele, just hang on for a minute for me for just a few seconds, because we have a reporter on Third Mainland Bridge. I believe you're in Lagos. Lagosians are crying over the Third Mainland Bridge. So let's have a quick update on the Third Mainland Bridge. Nkoli is right there with us right now. Hello, Nkoli, and what is happening there? What's happening? How are Lagosians reacting?
All right, thank you, Nancy. Lagosians are doing very well this morning, and I'd like to tell you that, Lagos already is known for traffic congestion. So today alone, it was just unprecedented because all the routes leading to Victoria Island, Falomo, and Ikoyi axis were all locked down because of the partial closure of the Third Mainland Bridge. Now, right here where we are is at the Bariga Waterfront Jetty, one of the waterfronts that has been strengthened by the Lagos State government to assuage the possible discomfort that passengers, particularly workers on the Lagos Island, Victoria Island, Falomo, Ikoyi, Lekki axis may likely face due to the partial closure of the Third Mainland Bridge. Now, and I'd like to tell you also, since you're talking business, that this is one of the places where Lagos State government generates one of its revenues. But during the lockdown, the jetty was also locked down, during the ease down it was opened, but then the passengers were so small, as I gathered from operators here today. And they told me that because of this partial closure, that the jetty has been strengthened for full operations with all the necessary equipments and gadgets that they need to ensure safety on the waterways. Now, I'll be talking briefly with the facility manager in this port, in this ferry terminal, who also told me that today the passenger size was also very low. They had only 14 passengers for one boat that has left this terminal this morning, even though the traffic was expected to be higher. So he'll be telling us why this this size is low compared to what they used to have at this ferry. Thank you very much. This is Mr. Akorede Abduraziz. He is the facility manager at the terminal here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah. Good morning, IT.
All right. Could you tell us exactly how many boats left this terminal today?
Yeah, apparently we have just one boat left this terminal this morning.
Okay, and how many passengers did you have?
14 passengers. Yeah, 14.
Okay. Do you think it's an increase, or is a decrease based on what you've been having before?
Yeah, it's also say it's a decrease to what we used to have before now. You understand? So it's a decrease.
Okay.
Yeah.
How many boats live here on a daily basis, even before the lockdown?
Oh, on a daily basis, we usually have like 3 to 4 boats leaving on a regular before the lockdown. You understand? But today we just have just one, and we are hoping to have more passengers coming in because we've made partners with other boat operators, even Lag Ferry, you understand, and we are hoping for more commuters because we have the capacity to move them.
All right. Now, this is the lockdown period is over, the ease down has started, and the ferry is operating. Compared with what you are having today, do you have safety procedures that you are following to ensure safety on waterways? Because most passengers I spoke with told me that they are just afraid of losing their lives because we've had so many boats capsizing on the waterway.
Oh yeah, the thing is we usually have safety procedures on the waterways. One, we usually have the the search and rescue team. So these are the merchant navies. They are in search of search and rescue. That's their job, basically. They're always on the waterways. And also, in as much as our boats, we ensure the normal capacity. We don't do overloading here. You understand? So with the normal capacity of the boat, we are sure of safety. We always have that safety is our own majority concern here.
COVID-19 protocols as listed by the NCDC and the Nigerian government.
Yeah, we follow the NCDC and the federal government procedure concerning the capacity carriage of each boat. For now, we have a 15-seater boat. Usually used to carry 20 passengers before now, but now it's 15 based on the capacity, 60% capacity, and that's what we do here.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Akorede. Of course, what we are seeing here is still like a graveyard because maybe the people have not started getting used to using the waterway. Some people are so scared of using the waterway. We've had so many boats capsize on the Lagos waterways, but today the government is saying that the capacity has been strengthened. More boats have been provided. Life jackets and life buoys have been provided for them to ensure safety on the waterways. Now the operators are hoping that the passenger size will increase maybe from tomorrow as work continues due to the partial lockdown of the Lagos mainland bridge. Thank you very much, Nancy.
Very much, Nkoli, for that intervention. Thank you very much. Hello, YouTubers. Welcome to Moneyline with Nancy TV YouTube channel. This is where we provide you with instructive business directions, processes, and guidance to help you assess the right resources to fund your businesses to withstand every form of internal and external shock. You will find here awesome informative videos on business, entrepreneurship, and lifestyle just to help you make informed business and financial decisions. Punch the subscribe button and let us drive you through the world of business. Please follow all our social media platforms on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, and follow us for latest updates on our website. Okay, let me come back to Mr. Oyedele. Mr. Oyedele, I guess that you also heard what Nkoli said. You are in Lagos, the partial lockdown of Lagos Third Mainland Bridge I know I'm deviating a bit, but we're still talking business anyway. We're still talking about revenue generation. Third Mainland Bridge is an economic road, as the bridge linking the mainland and the island. One would think, okay, when we were on a lockdown, why didn't government do all of that? Now we're easing the lockdown. Businesses are gradually reopening. What is your own view?
Yeah, I think, this is one thing that we struggle with in Nigeria, and it's long-term planning. Even though I'll say the lockdown wasn't something that was pre-planned, but if someone had thought about routine maintenance for the Third Mainland Bridge, including major maintenances, and they have been planned, as soon as we saw that there was going to be a lockdown, we could have fast-tracked that activity such that while people are at home, trying to be safe from COVID-19, we used the opportunity to do the construction, but that did not happen. But I also have to say that I commend government, and including government of Lagos State, in terms of the way they are managing it. I'm not saying that it's perfect, but at least what they've done is to ensure that people that will be affected is less than 25% of the traffic on the Third Mainland Bridge. Because from midnight to 12 noon, you can come from mainland inward Victoria Island, which is where you have the volume of traffic. And then from 12 noon thereafter, from VI to mainland. So that way we have a lot of the people who need to use the bridge being catered for. But we just need to marry that with issues around logistics, communication, and also try to guide people not to hope to find them doing the wrong thing so they can be arrested.
Okay, let's go back to what we were discussing earlier regarding the stamp duties to be collected by landlords and agents. You've clarified the different charges, 6% for rent above 21 years. Perhaps we hardly have those that pay above 21 years in Nigeria, 3% on 7 to 21 years. And I hope that my viewers are taking note of this. There's 0.78% on less than 7 years. Perhaps that's where a lot of us Nigerians fall into. The question right now will be, what about the pragmatism or the practicability of compliance enforcement? Who takes the landlords are supposed to be taking the stamp duties? Are they remitting to the FIRS, or will they remit to the FIRS? And just to follow up quickly so that you answer all of that, has this all actually been in existence, the stamp duty, or we just pay our flat rental fees?
Yes. So generally in terms of stamp duties, I would say the agency of government that has been very consistent in collecting stamp duty has been the Corporate Affairs Commission. There was not a single time when they stopped collecting it. And then we know that when the CBN directed the banks to start collecting stamp duty on money transfer, then the news was all over the place. But in terms of rent, I'm not aware that majority of people were even paying at all. In fact, they were not even aware that there was stamp duties on rent, let alone paying. Maybe the only exceptions would be very big organizations where you are dealing with, organizations who are careful about doing the right thing, and they seek professional opinion, and then they decide that they will do the right thing no matter whether other people are doing so or not. At the point where we are now, I think FRS has, even a much easier job to do, if I may put it that way, than the state internal revenue services. The reason I say that is because you only have to worry about stamp duties payable to the FRS if a company is involved. And if a company is involved, you would imagine it's a fairly well-organized transaction, and the amount is not likely to be very small. But, pardon my language, if somebody is living in face me, I slap you. You're telling about stamp duty. If anybody shows up, that person should be worried for their safety to go and collect stamp duty. Those are guys who are struggling to survive. They're even owing rent. They have not paid.
Yes.
Right. So for those individuals, I think the tax authorities should be very realistic and pragmatic. They should just ignore and forget about people who are poor. Don't go to them at all. It is insensitive. I think it's not even right. If you can just draw your line and focus on people who have the capacity to pay, then do a lot of sensitization and awareness so that people first understand. Then create a process for compliance that is very simple. It should be just as simple as recharging my phone If it's too complicated, nobody will do it.
So
if you do all of that, I think maybe they will get some revenue from this.
You know what? I would. That was just what I was coming to. That isn't this a difficult time? Isn't it more difficult, and the government wants to make it harder for Nigerians to continue to fleece money from us? And a pandemic worsened the economy. The NLC has also come out to kick against this policy. That was even before the clarification. Is there another painless alternative for government to generate revenue and make money that it requires to navigate this time without untold hardship on Nigerians? I also know that it's not easy for government, but perhaps government should also check itself first. Yes.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, so unfortunately in a pandemic like this, government revenue will naturally go down, but it's also unfortunately the time when they need to spend even more than in the time of peace when they do not have any crisis. So it's tough for government, if I may put it that way. And I'm not running away from the fact that Nigerians don't care, because they just believe that even when everything was fine, what were they doing with the money they collected?
True.
So what that means, and the IMF even said this, recently, to say we should not think about new taxes or raising tax rates and all of that. We should focus on the efficiency of collection. So as we speak, there are a lot of taxes payable by individuals and companies who have the capacity to pay that we are not efficient at collecting them. In fact, MDAs are some of the worst tax avoiders, if not evaders, in Nigeria.
Call them their names, not just MDAs, government itself, because they're also government.
Yes, government. So
yes.
Government have to start this by leading by example. So if you focus on efficiency of collection, whether it's VAT that is already there, or personal income tax, or companies income tax, or capital gains tax, you'll be able to raise a lot of revenue. I think it's the wrong time to start focusing on poor people and trying to get the little that they're trying to use to survive on a day-to-day basis.
Now, what can be done regarding unoccupied mansions, unoccupied houses, especially this FCT? I also know they could be in the island of Lagos and some other highbrow areas in the country. What should be done to those unoccupied mansions and unoccupied houses? Because I remember during the Dr. Konjo-Iweala days as finance minister, the mansion tax was also being milled during that period of getting more revenue for government. In fact, when they also removed the subsidy on fuel and all of that. Should we go back to that? Should government be looking at that?
Yeah, I think it will depend on what government wants to achieve, because many of us know that these unoccupied properties, especially those ones in the highbrow areas, in FCT, in Lagos, in Port Harcourt, in Kano, a lot of them were, properties acquired from very dirty means that people cannot boldly say this is where I got the money from. A lot of it was proceeds of corruption, illicit financial flows. So otherwise, that's why you find if somebody will spend 500 million naira to buy a property and they don't care whether it's been rented out for years. If you borrowed money to build it, you'll be careful, right? Because you want to recover some of the money back. So if what government wants to achieve is that we have a lot of demand for property, but a lot of them are locked in because the owners are not interested in renting out. If that is the problem government wants to solve, then imposing a tax on unoccupied properties might be a way, but also bear in mind that there are legitimate landowners and property owners who are actually looking for tenants, but they can't find. And they've not stolen the money to build the property. So while we are trying to address people who may be doing the wrong thing, we have to be mindful not to punish those who are doing honest business as well.
Now, that brings me to another dimension of this generating revenue. I don't know if you saw over the weekend the uproar and the outrage on social media that NIPOST increased the new licensing fees for municipal operators to 1 million and annual renewal fees to 40% of new licensing fees at 400,000 a year. State operators fees raised to 2 million and all of that. If you take a look at what is happening right now in this country, we have a pandemic worsened economy. Our economy wasn't even doing well. It was trying to come out of coma. We have come out of coma. We're just trying to recover from the recession. Then the pandemic hit us. A lot of people lost their jobs. In Lagos, for example, Sanwo-Olu told the people, take off your cadres from the main roads and all of that. And these are people that have now turned into logistics and transport business. And the NIPOST is coming to say, we are going to increase your licensing fee. Though Minister Issa Pantami of Communications and Digital Economy did say over the weekend to clarify all of that. But why is it that government is just speaking from all places? It seems government is not coordinated. I understand they want to generate revenue, but what is this that Nigerians are just, our ears are filled up?
Yeah, this is very unfortunate that sometimes you just see there's no coordination or a direction by government, and it's really very unfortunate because you find some of the people in government are really working hard, and they seem to understand the overall objective and the direction of government. But then you have the vast majority who just don't care and can't even think about the bigger picture. They operate in their own small cubicles and they're trying to make laws as if they were government to themselves. Now, what we have seen around the world has been government even waiving, business permits, licenses, because you just need people to continue to survive. People have to survive today so that they can be there tomorrow for you to tax them. You cannot tax people who are struggling to survive. You will kill them. And once those businesses are gone, there will be nothing to collect again tomorrow. So what I was the Minister for Communication and Technology had intervened to say, well, I didn't give you this approval because based on the NIPOST Act, the powers to determine the rates for the license and the permit rest with the minister, not with NIPOST, not with the Postmaster General. So that clarification was good. But the fact that this even happened in the first place is not good enough. Many countries, what Nigeria should be thinking about is how can we support these people? Because they're just trying to improvise to survive. And they're rendering services and meeting a need, which not only helps them to continue to earn their livelihood, but helps us to control COVID-19 because for their sake, many of us are not going out. We know we can order things and it will be delivered to us. So if we think about it that way, what government should be doing at NIPOST is how can we train these people to be world class? Some of them will drive and get to the front of your gate and say, come out, and they just scream your name because they don't understand how these things should be done. Let Nigeria even develop a postal code so that people find addresses so easily. We must start thinking about how can we help our people, not just to take advantage of them every single time to collect money from them. When you allow them to do well and thrive, it will be a no-brainer. When you have Nigerian companies that can compete with DHL and they're all over the place, you not only collect this registration fee, you collect CIT, you collect all manner of things, there'll be employment, and before you know it, they'll venture into the rest of Africa, rest of the world. You have international companies into logistics starting from Nigeria. Today, Apple alone will pay enough tax to cover Nigeria's budget deficits, right? That's because their government allowed them to grow. Let's allow Nigerian businesses to thrive, and then we can generate revenue later on from them.
I know, Mr. Oyedele, I just have like 5 minutes with you before you go. It's really sometimes not palatable news when we say things like this, because you see a lot of businesses in Nigeria, they are just in a survival mode. Most businesses, especially around micro and small businesses, come out of survivalistic strategies, our tendencies, and government is breathing high and high on them. It seems from the Finance Act of 2019, government told companies that don't make up to 25 million and below, you are free, don't pay VAT and all of that. But you are not coming back to say, okay, pay so amount of rent, and NIPOST. Come on. But let's talk about the revenue generation, the strategic revenue growth initiative that the Minister of Finance has put together and is mulling a 13 trillion to 18 trillion naira revenue generation drive for the country, 15% of revenue to GDP ratio. How do you think that this government can achieve that? States should generate about 3.4 trillion naira from that. We know what our states are up to. Come on, a lot of them have slashed their budgets this year because of the pandemic. How is this possible?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that if we do the right thing, we can collect even more than twice what the minister has laid out in that revenue strategy. So like you said, states are expected to generate a little over 3 trillion. They currently generate 1.3 trillion naira, all the states. But I'll tell you that South Africa, with about less than 1/3 of our population, the same percentage of unemployment, very huge exemption for poor people who earn very little. They collect more from personal income tax alone than we collect from all taxes, including petroleum profit tax. In the last fiscal year, they collected about 11 trillion naira equivalent from personal income tax alone. So this gives you an idea of the potential for government to collect revenue without overburdening the poor people in society. So if you create the right threshold, even for stamp duties, I'll say if your rent is below a certain threshold, don't pay stamp duties at all. Focus on the people who can pay it and do it right. You find that the top 1% in Nigeria alone can fund government revenue if you tax them properly. So this is what we should be focusing on, and it's part of what the IMF says around efficiency of collection.
I think the efficiency should also start from government spending. Let governments be accountable, because the same. Yes, so because the IMF chief, Kristalina Georgieva, in the middle of this pandemic or in the middle of the lockdown, did say, please, for all you spend, keep the receipt. We're seeing what is happening right now, even around the NDDC saga. It's okay, come on. And this is something that will make us a laughing stock when countries are battling to save their people, to save their businesses. America is still doling out more checks. Europe is still coming up with new deals. These are established economies, let alone a developing economy like us. One final word from you in just a few seconds.
Yeah, I think my final word would be that Nigerians need to just recognize that at the end of the day, issues to do with taxation are national issues. So the reason why the likes of the US and the Europe are able to administer palliative is because they have the tax revenue. Many of them didn't even have to be looking for the people. They used their tax record to know who was poor and they credited their account. So I know it's painful to pay tax, but the other option is not even better. So let's do the best we can, hold government to account, and hopefully Nigeria will have a better story to tell very soon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oyedele. I kept with the time, 11:34.
Yeah.
11:34. So I'll see you again sometime. Have a wonderful week.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, that's the, I've been speaking with Taiwo Oyedele, who is the West Africa tax leader at PricewaterhouseCoopers. We've been looking at diverse issues of revenue generation for government. The NIPOST issue, which Minister Pantami came out over the weekend to say, no, there was no approval given to NIPOST to increase the licensing fee as well as the tenancy and lease agreement. I hope you've been clarified now. It is not a flat rate of 6%. You pay according to the number of years that you lease. Thank you for watching our video. Please hit the subscribe button below, turn on post notification to follow all our updates.